Hello, and welcome. Have you ever stood at the edge of a vast desert, your pockets empty, your dreams half buried in the sand, believing that the next drop of water, your miracle, must come from outside? What if the oasis you seek has been within you all along? If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Booksnap, and comment below the title of the book you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Jonas sank onto the sunlit bench overlooking the salt flats, the horizon shimmering like heat-warped glass. As a failed inventor, he'd spent years chasing that one breakthrough, an affordable water purifier he believed could save drought-stricken villages. He'd gambled his savings, mortgaged his father's garage, held patent applications like tattered talismans against a future that never arrived. Each rejection letter felt like a scalding verdict. Insufficient data. Market too small. Prototype flawed. His hands, once deft with soldering irons, shook now with the weight of defeat. A scorching wind whispered across the flats, and Jonas closed his eyes, tasting the dust on his tongue. In that silence, a thread of thought teased at him. What if I've been looking for miracles where none can be found? He pictured the purifier schematic again. Valves, membranes, pump cycles, but the desert's emptiness mirrored the hollow in his chest. He felt a pull to something deeper, a seed of doubt about the external world's power to redeem him. That night, in a dim corner of the town library, Jonas unearthed a dusty volume, You Can Work Your Own Miracles by Napoleon Hill. As he cracked the spine, a single sentence lit up the gloom. Every human mind that becomes completely self-confident possesses the power to reach its greatest potential. Jonas paused, breath caught. Could self-confidence summon miracles? Had he mistaken external tinkering for internal transformation? Driven by that question, he turned the pages, discovering Hill's assertion that our thoughts are the architects of destiny, not merely passive observers of fate. The very miracles he had sought in foreign grants, investors, and fancy labs, Hill argued, were born first in the fertile realm of the mind. A flicker of excitement ignited. Maybe the purifier wasn't a solitary mechanical feat, but a manifestation of his own mental alchemy. On the ride home, Jonas pulled out a scrap of napkin and scribbled, I am the source of my miracles. My mind holds the power to shape my future. He read it aloud, once, twice, and felt the words echo in his ribcage like a new heartbeat. For the first time in months, his cold fingertips tingled not from despair, but from a nascent spark of possibility. The next morning, Jonas approached his workbench with fresh eyes. The twin valves in his purifier prototype lay half-assembled, their alignment once a source of frustration. Now, he paused before tightening a single bolt, closing his eyes to internalize Hill's principle. What the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. He visualized the purifier working flawlessly, water streaming through microfilters, impurities trapped like shadows in the glass, and let that conviction guide his hands rather than stiff technical manuals. With each adjustment, his confidence grew. He tested the pump motor, bracing for sputters, but found a smooth, steady hum. When water flowed cleanly for the first time, he tasted not relief, but wonder, a miracle of his own making, crafted not solely by mechanics but by the potent synergy of belief and action. Over the following days, Jonas built a ritual around this newfound insight. Each morning at dawn, he stood before the mirror in his cramped workshop and proclaimed 3 truths. I possess the power to conceive miracles. I believe in my mind's creative force. I act boldly to bring envisioned wonders into being. The words felt like warm sunlight flooding his bones, dispelling the frost of doubt. He followed each affirmation with a single constructive act, redesigning a seal, drafting a user manual with care, reaching out to a villager in a nearby hamlet for feedback. Not every experiment succeeded. Some seals leaked, some pumps faltered, and on those days, Jonas leaned harder into his mind's command. Every setback is a stepping stone. He sketched the failures into his logbook, not as evidence of defeat, but as vital data points illustrating the alchemical path of trial, reflection, and refinement. His workshop buzzed not with frustration, but with the steady hum of focused effort and unshakable belief. Word of Jonas's transformation carried beyond the salt flats. Neighbors who once pitied his desperation now approached with respect. A local teacher invited him to speak at the school's career day, where he shared the tale of working his first miracle not by external funding, but by reclaiming the power of thought. Students listened, eyes wide with possibility, as Jonas held aloft his prototype and declared, "This glass of pure water was born from the belief that I could make it so." By the time Jonas guided his first kit of purified water to a parched village miles away, he realized the deepest miracle had preceded any physical creation, the metamorphosis of his own mind. The villagers, gathered around a simple tent, watched in silent awe as water dripped clear into clay pots. Their gratitude shimmered against the dust, proof that when the mind conceives and believes, it can indeed work wonders. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jonas stood beside the purifier, heart full. He knew that this was only the beginning, that the countless miracles waiting on his workbench would all spring from that single, powerful shift within. And in that desert of dust and doubt, he smiled, knowing the real oasis lay not in distant grants or sprawling labs, but in the boundless landscapes of his own mind. Leah pressed her fingertips against the cool glass of her apartment's rain-spattered window, watching droplets race each other toward the sill. She had once imagined herself a celebrated novelist, her words stirring hearts, her name on bestseller lists. Yet manuscript after manuscript lay abandoned in her desk drawer, half-written narratives suffocated by uncertainty. She yearned to write, but each blank page loomed like an empty promise. Late one stormy night, Leah stumbled upon a crisp notebook in her favorite bookstore, a gift from fate, she would later think, inscribed with Napoleon Hill's opening line on definite desire. Desire backed by faith knows no such word as impossible. She flipped the notebook open and found Hill's exercise. To craft a definite desire statement, a precise declaration of exactly what you intend to achieve, with a deadline and a clear plan. Leah realized that without such clarity, her hopes were vapor, beautiful but ultimately insubstantial. Inspired, she fetched a pen and settled at her kitchen table. The rain tapped a gentle rhythm as she wrote, "I, Leah Montgomery, will complete and submit my novel, Echoes of Dawn, of at least 80,000 words to 3 literary agents by August 1st of this year, with daily writing goals and weekly progress reviews." Writing those words felt like igniting a beacon in the storm. She underlined August 1st twice, feeling her heart beat in time with the date. This was not a vague hope of writing more, but a definite desire carved in concrete, measurable, time-bound, and alive with possibility. The next morning, Leah created her action plan. She divided the 80,000 words by the weeks remaining, 15 weeks to go, requiring just under 5,500 words per week, or approximately 800 words per day. She blocked an hour each morning for uninterrupted writing, shielded by the click-clack of keyboard devotion. On her phone's calendar, she scheduled weekly progress reflections on Sundays, where she would review her word count, celebrate gains, and recalibrate if she fell behind. As days passed, Leah's definite desire guided her through writer's blocks and distractions. When her alarm rang at dawn, she no longer hit snooze. The promise on that notebook propelled her from bed. In her first writing session, her fingers hesitated above the keys until she recalled Hill's assertion that burning desire is the starting point of all achievement. With a deep breath, she typed, Chapter 1, and watched the cursor pulse like a heartbeat, ready to sustain her own. Leah's elevator pitch crystallized around her definite desire. When a colleague asked about her weekend plans, she no longer mumbled, "I'll try to write." Instead, she declared, "I'm completing Echoes of Dawn by August 1st," a statement that startled her with its confidence. She found that voicing her goal aloud, another Hill-recommended practice, ignited accountability and drew support from unexpected corners. Her sister offered to proofread, a neighbor lent her a secluded writing cabin, and a local cafe comped her morning coffee for every 1,000-word milestone. Yet, clarity of desire did not erase challenges. On a dreary Tuesday, her writing felt flat. Dialogue stumbled, and her protagonist's motivations blurred. Doubt crept in. Maybe I can't write 800 words today. Maybe this novel isn't worth finishing. In that crucial moment, Leah revisited her definite desire statement and read it aloud. "I will complete and submit my novel." The words acted like a compass, pointing her back to purpose. She surrendered the idea of perfection, focusing instead on fulfilling the daily word count. Imperfect prose, she reminded herself, could be refined later. What mattered was forward motion. Over subsequent weeks, weekly progress reflections became sacred. Leah charted her cumulative word count on a hand-drawn graph taped to her wall, green markers denoting days she hit her 800 words, orange marking days she exceeded her goal, and red highlighting shortfalls. The visual map of her journey revealed an arc of steady ascent, each marker a testament to her definite desire in action. On weeks she stumbled, family illness, work crises, she leaned into Hill's advice. Adjust swiftly and keep moving, rather than succumb to guilt. Midway through her journey, Leah faced her greatest test. A weekend writing retreat she'd planned collided with a close friend's wedding. Torn between celebration and her deadline, she weighed possibilities. Hill's philosophy crystallized a choice. Love demanded presence, but so did her burning desire. Leah negotiated. She would toast her friend at the reception, then steal dawn hours the next 2 mornings for focused writing. Her friend, touched by Leah's commitment, gifted her 2 extra mornings at the edge of Lake Roselle for solitude, another ripple of accountability born from definite desire. As August approached, Leah's manuscript swelled beyond 80,000 words, glorious and unwieldy, prompting late-night revisions to refine narrative arcs. On July 30th, she printed and bound her work, running her fingers over each page as if caressing the physical manifestation of her desire. On July 31st, she stayed until midnight, drafting personalized cover letters. And on August 1st's dawn, Leah clicked send on her emails to 3 agents, her heart soaring. That afternoon, she sank into her writing cabin's armchair, rain drifting down the windows in gentle applause. "I did it," she whispered, tears mixing with rain on the glass. Her definite desire had shaped each morning's routine, each difficult choice and every impassioned sentence. It had transformed nebulous hope into a structured march toward proof of her own potential. By August 1st's end, Leah's inbox chimed with confirmations of receipt and requests for sample chapters, small miracles in themselves. Yet her greatest triumph lay not in responses but in the self-mastery born from crafting and living her definite desire. She had demonstrated that clear, focused, and faith-backed desire becomes the blueprint from which daily actions spring, and miracles follow. Marcus paced the polished floors of his small startup's empty office, the fluorescent lights reflecting off glass walls that felt more like a prison than a podium for innovation. Just 6 months ago, he and his 2 co-founders had launched Greenleaf, a smart irrigation system designed to conserve water and revitalize drought-stricken farms. They'd secured seed funding, built a prototype, and signed letters of intent with eager pilots. Now, shipment delays, technological glitches, and wavering investor interest had tightened around them like a vice. Bank balances hovered near zero, and doubt whispered that their dream might dry up before it ever watered a single field. Late one restless night, Marcus came across a worn copy of Napoleon Hill's You Can Work Your Own Miracles in his apartment's dusty bookshelf, an artifact from his grandfather's library, untouched for years. He flipped to the chapter on faith and read, "Faith is the only known antidote for failure. It is the magnet that attracts opportunity." The words shimmered, resonating with a truth Marcus had long overlooked. Without belief in unseen possibilities, no amount of technical acumen or market strategy could carry a vision through the storms. He realized that in their pragmatic scramble, dashboards, pivot plans, cold calls, they had sidelined faith, replacing it with frantic calculation. Their belief in the mission, reviving parched lands and empowering farmers, had been their North Star. Now that star flickered behind anxiety. Marcus resolved to rekindle faith as the guiding force of their venture, not a blind leap, but a reasoned trust that aligned their actions with unwavering conviction. At dawn, Marcus gathered his co-founders, Elena and Rashid, around a bare conference table. He shared Hill's insights on faith, the principle that belief combined with clear purpose creates a spiritual force that shapes reality. He proposed a new ritual. Each week, before any status updates or sales reports, the team would speak aloud their faith-based vision, imagining lush fields thriving under smart irrigation, smiles on farmers' faces, and Greenleaf's network of sustainable partnerships reshaping entire regions. Their first faith circle felt awkward, nothing more than hopeful words floating in the echo of a sterile room. But as they practiced, their voices grew firmer, eyes brighter. Elena declared, "I have faith that our system's next prototype will exceed expectations." And Rashid affirmed, "I trust that the right partner will step forward to bring our solution to thousands." Marcus closed the circle with a vow. "We believe in our mission's power to transform lives, and that belief will guide every decision we make." Embracing faith did not banish obstacles. It reshaped how they faced them. When critical components for their latest prototypes arrived weeks late, Marcus resisted the urge to panic scramble. Instead, he held their faith circle in code review sessions. They visualized seamless circuitry, then methodically debugged their existing boards until they sparked to life. Faith fueled patience and creativity, transforming frustration into focused problem-solving. Their renewed conviction rippled beyond engineering. In investor meetings, they shifted narratives from cautious forecasts to bold testimonials rooted in faith, sharing personal letters from farmers who tested early models, telling stories of wilting crops saved by minute water adjustments, and invoking the emotional truth that sustainable agriculture was a cause worth believing in. Investors, often jaded by spreadsheets, leaned in, drawn not merely by numbers, but by the founders' palpable faith in a future they could co-create. Greenleaf's faith-driven approach also empowered their marketing. Rather than generic ads, they produced short films featuring real farmers speaking of hope and harvest, underscoring how belief in better systems could yield tangible miracles. These stories spread virally, igniting partnerships with environmental NGOs and agricultural cooperatives who saw Greenleaf as more than a product. They saw a movement. Yet, faith's ultimate test arrived when a major pilot farm, chosen as their showcase, reported inconsistent data, soil moisture readings fluctuating wildly, leaving crops waterlogged one day and parched the next. The team's old instincts would have triggered panic protocols, refunds, product recalls, apologies, but anchored by faith, they convened a special faith circle, reaffirming their mission and belief in their system's potential. They then embarked on a rigorous field investigation, collaborating with farm workers to recalibrate sensor placements and refine algorithms. Each step infused with faith-backed persistence led to a system update that stabilized performance across varied terrains. Within weeks, that pilot farm saw a 30% increase in yield and a 40% reduction in water usage. The success reverberated, drawing national attention and a new wave of investment. Greenleaf's narrative was no longer just about clever technology, but about the faith that turned prototypes into lifelines for communities battling water scarcity. As Marcus watched verdant fields appear on satellite imagery, he marveled at the journey. Faith had not supplanted expertise. It had infused expertise with unshakable conviction. It had turned a startup's tremulous hopes into strategic resilience, a marketing bolt into a clarion call, and engineering setbacks into opportunities for deeper discovery. At their first anniversary celebration, Marcus stood before a gathering of farmers, investors, and team members. He reflected on Hill's words. "Faith is the blue flame that can turn the wildest dream into reality." He spoke of the challenges they'd overcome, the persistent belief that bridged each crisis, and the miracles, both large and small, that faith had wrought. As applause swelled, Marcus knew that the green shoots rising under their system were not just plants, but living testaments to a principle as old as belief itself, that when we nourish our visions with faith, we become conduits for miracles in the world. Marisol's hands fluttered with exhaustion as she adjusted the IV line in room 208. The hospital corridor's fluorescent buzz had become her metronome, shift after shift carrying trauma, heartache, and the brittle hope of healing. Each night she slipped into bed haunted by patients she couldn't save, her dreams crowded with monitors flatlining. She had chosen nursing to bring comfort, yet found herself drained, her own spirit fraying at the seams. One evening, between charting and code blues, Marisol discovered a thin notebook slipped under her locker door. A copy of You Can Work Your Own Miracles, annotated with a single phrase circled in red ink. Autosuggestion is the spoonful of sugar that helps belief digest into reality. Intrigued, she flipped open the pages to the section on autosuggestion, where Hill explained that repeating positive affirmations primes the subconscious to align circumstances and actions with our conscious desires. Marisol realized she had been reinforcing her fatigue each morning with thoughts of dread. Another long day. I can't keep this up. What if, instead, she could reprogram her mind to summon energy and compassion? That night, Marisol sat on her narrow bed and penned 3 affirmations on a scrap of paper. I am a healing presence. I bring calm and strength to every patient. Each shift renews my compassion and energy. She taped this note to her bathroom mirror, where she could see it first thing at dawn. The next morning, as she splashed water on her face, Marisol read the affirmations aloud, her voice shaky at first but growing steadier with each repetition. The words felt awkward on her tongue, yet for the first time in months she noticed a subtle warmth blossoming in her chest. She tucked the note into her pocket, a talisman for the day ahead. On the floor, when alarms blared in room 312 and chaos erupted, Marisol's first instinct, panic, rose like a tide. But she pressed a hand to her pocket, felt the folded paper, and whispered in her mind, I am a healing presence. She moved with deliberate calm, issuing clear instructions, guiding colleagues, and soothing patients. Amid the mayhem, she discovered that each affirming thought found expression in steady hands and clear tone. Marisol wove autosuggestion into every corner of her routine. On the elevator ride to work, she recited her affirmations 3 times. During coffee breaks, she repeated them again, letting the words circulate through her body like medicine. When sleepless nights beckoned with worry, she lay in darkness and visualized herself floating on a tide of calm, buoyed by her own compassionate strength. At first, the transformations were subtle, a steadying of her breath, a hint of resolve in her decisions. But over weeks, the changes deepened. She found herself arriving at the hospital with a quiet anticipation, eager to meet each patient anew rather than slog through duty. Her colleagues noticed her renewed energy and began asking for her secret. Marisol smiled, knowing that the miracle lay not in coffee or willpower, but in the simple, repeated act of speaking hope into existence. One day, she cared for an elderly man racked by pain and fear. His trembling hand barely reached for hers as she entered the room. Marisol pressed her affirmation anew. I bring calm and strength. She offered soothing words, adjusted his medication with precise care, and guided him through gentle breathing exercises she had practiced herself. Over the next hours, his anxiety eased, his grip strengthened, and he whispered, Thank you for saving me today. That moment crystallized the alchemy of autosuggestion. By refilling her own cup with affirming beliefs, Marisol poured healing into another. The notebook's teachings revealed that affirmations are not empty platitudes, but seeds sown in the subconscious. Seeds that sprout energy, focus, and compassion in the garden of our daily lives. Encouraged, Marisol expanded her practice. She crafted new affirmations for specific challenges. I innovate solutions for every patient's need, on rounds requiring creative care. I recover swiftly after each shift at post-call debriefs, and I celebrate every life I touch on the drive home. Over time, these tailored affirmations became a dynamic toolkit, each phrase unlocking a reservoir of resilience. Word of her transformation seeped through hospital halls. At a staff meeting, Marisol shared her journey, distributing small cards with her favorite affirmations. Colleagues, once skeptical, laughed in wonder as they recited the phrases, eyes brightening. They began borrowing her notebook, adding their own affirmations. I guide families with empathy. I grow stronger through each challenge. As Marisol approached her one-year anniversary of using autosuggestion, she reflected on her journey through that corridor of glowing monitors. She had not only revived her own passion, but had sparked a movement of hope within her team. Patient satisfaction scores climbed, staff retention improved, and the hospital's atmosphere shifted from mere endurance to shared purpose. In her quiet apartment, Marisol returned to the mirror and erased the original note, replacing it with, I am the living proof of my own miracles. She smiled at her reflection, no longer haunted by burnout, but illuminated by the simple truth that the words we feed our minds become the miracles we live each day. Julia stared at the jagged tangle of sticky notes plastered across her office wall, deadlines in neon pink, client names in electric blue, meeting times in dull yellow. Each note felt like a screaming chorus, vying for her attention, pulling her in a dozen directions at once. As a senior project manager for a digital agency, she was tasked with juggling multiple campaigns, cross-departmental teams, and shifting priorities. Yet the swelling chaos in her mind and in her workspace left her paralyzed, drowning in the very productivity system she'd invented to save herself. One evening, Julia found a battered copy of You Can Work Your Own Miracles tucked behind her desk books. She flipped through its dog-eared pages and paused at Hill's chapter on organized planning and the power of an organized mind. Hill wrote, Clarity and order in thought precede every act of leadership and every feat of achievement. The notion resonated like a bell in the din of her disorder. Without an organized mind, even the noblest intentions falter. That night, she cleared her desk entirely, sweeping the sticky notes into a box and shoving knickknacks into drawers. In the newly empty space, she placed the book open to Hill's guidance on master-minded organization, an approach that blended clear written plans, trusted collaborators, and daily reviews to marshal thought into decisive action. Julia realized she needed to apply this tool not just to projects, but to her own mind's architecture. At dawn, Julia drafted her personal organization blueprint. In the center, she wrote her overarching objectives. Deliver 3 high-impact campaigns this quarter, mentor 2 junior colleagues, ensure team work-life balance. Around those, she drew concentric circles for daily, weekly, and monthly actions, each ring specifying tasks, emails, check-ins, performance reviews, creative brainstorms. Crucially, she assigned each action a fixed time block and a clear outcome metric. She complemented the blueprint with a delegation matrix on her laptop, categorizing tasks into 4 quadrants: do it now, schedule, delegate, or dump. Within hours, routine meetings she once attended mechanically were either canceled or handed off to team leads. Urgent but non-critical emails were batched into morning and afternoon blocks. Low-value activities were struck entirely. The friction of indecision evaporated, replaced by a disciplined flow. Julia then instituted a daily mind sweep. Each evening, she spent 10 minutes capturing stray thoughts, ideas, worries, reminders into a single digital inbox. No thought was too small. Reminders to order office supplies, flashes of creative inspiration, notes about personal errands. By externalizing these fragments, she prevented mental clutter from siphoning her focus. The next morning, she triaged the inbox against her blueprint, assigning each item to a time block or discarding it with mindfulness. Within a week, the transformation was palpable. Her desk, once a riot of color, gleamed under the morning light. Her calendar displayed clearly boxed appointments, each preceded by 15-minute prep slots. She felt a quiet confidence replacing her previous edge of anxiety. Projects moved forward with precision. Campaign assets flowed seamlessly, team members knew their deliverables, and client calls focused on breakthroughs, not on rediscovering basic details. Julia also established a weekly strategy huddle every Monday morning, a mastermind-style meeting where her core team reviewed the blueprint's progress, highlighted bottlenecks, and adjusted plans collaboratively. These gatherings, once a grab bag of updates, became strategic orchestration sessions, ensuring alignment and shared ownership. Hill's principle took flesh. An organized mind, mirrored by an organized team, became a crucible for miracles, breakthrough deliverables, creative pivots, and unexpected efficiencies. The next test arrived when a major client request landed just before a holiday weekend, an entirely new product feature to be integrated into a live campaign. In the past, this scenario would have sparked frantic all-hands efforts and sleepless nights, but with her organized system, Julia calmly mapped the request onto her blueprint. She identified the responsible developers, invoked a rapid design sub-team, and scheduled a short virtual huddle for immediate feedback. By Monday afternoon, they had a workable prototype, ready for user testing by Tuesday morning, an achievement that felt miraculous but was, in reality, the product of disciplined organization. Beyond work, Julia applied the same principles to her personal life. She carved out family time blocks visible on her shared calendar, Sunday brunches, Wednesday night walks, and monthly game night rituals. She used the Mind Sweep to jot down grocery items and bill reminders, freeing her evenings from nagging mental to-dos. Even her fitness tracker synced to scheduled 30-minute runs, ensuring that her health was woven into the fabric of her organized day. As the quarter closed, Julia reviewed her blueprint's metrics. All 3 campaigns launched on schedule, client satisfaction soared to record highs, and her team reported higher morale and lower stress levels. Her own burnout receded, replaced by a steady pulse of accomplishment. In a quiet moment, Julia retrieved Hill's book and underlined his words. "The mind that is organized commands its environment. It masters material obstacles and shapes its own future." She realized that organization wasn't about sterile rigidity, but about creating the freedom to innovate, connect, and lead with clarity. As she gazed at her streamlined workspace, no sticky notes, no scattered papers, just her blueprint and a steaming mug, Julia understood that the true miracle was not the rocket-speed campaign launches, but the serene confidence of an organized mind. And in that serenity, she found the power to transform chaos into creation, one deliberate plan at a time. Each morning, Camille's studio lay bathed in golden light, easels aligned, canvases waiting, but her hands trembled as she lifted her brush. The white expanse on her latest commission mocked her. How could she possibly capture a father's grief in abstract form? The art festival's deadline loomed, and every stroke felt hesitant, every color choice fraught with doubt. In those moments, fear wrapped around her like a vice, whispering that she wasn't worthy of calling herself an artist. Late one quiet evening, Camille opened Napoleon Hill's You Can Work Your Own Miracles to the chapter on Conquering Fear's Barrier. Hill declared, "Fear, the mind's greatest enemy, must be confronted daily. Each courageous act chips away its power." He described fear as an illusion, a projection of worst-case scenarios that rarely materialize, and urged readers to meet it head-on with deliberate action. The challenge resonated deeply. Camille realized that her greatest obstacle wasn't lack of talent, but her own trembling heart. At dawn the next day, Camille placed a single white canvas on an easel, smaller than her commissioned work. She resolved to paint fear, to confront it by giving it form. With bold, jagged strokes of deep charcoal and crimson, she transformed the blank surface into a visceral storm, dark tendrils of near black swirling into splashes of red that spoke of panic and urgency. Each brush stroke was an act of defiance, a tangible expression of the fear she'd kept locked inside. When the final streak of crimson splashed across the canvas, Camille stepped back and exhaled. There, before her, was fear laid bare, no longer an invisible specter but a creation she had summoned and owned. She titled the piece, "The Enemy Inside." In painting fear, she realized she had diminished its power. What once rattled her core now stood contained within the frame, subject to her will. Emboldened, she introduced a daily ritual. Each morning, she would identify one personal fear of failure, of rejection, of not living up to her own standards, and create a small fear sketch to express it. 20 minutes, one canvas, and then a moment of reflection. In these early days, the sketches were raw. Shaky lines for financial insecurity, chaotic scribbles for social anxiety, desolate washes of gray for creative paralysis. Yet with each sunrise session, her hands steadied, her mind clarified, and the intangible became a source of insight rather than dread. Hill taught that fear feeds on avoidance, gaining strength in the shadows of our avoidance. By forcing fear into the light, by painting it, naming it, examining its forms, Camille discovered that its roar diminished. She began to see the common thread in her fears. A story loop of not enough, spun by her inner critic. Recognizing this tale, she could rewrite its ending. Her next step was to confront fear through bold action. When invited to present her work at a local gallery, a dream long deferred by self-doubt, she nearly declined. Instead, she recited Hill's mantra, "Face the fear, and the fear will disappear." She accepted, preparing a speech about her journey of painting fear itself. On opening night, her voice trembled at first, but as she shared her ritual, the audience leaned in, moved by her honesty. The applause that followed wasn't just for her art, but for her courage in embracing vulnerability. Camille also applied fearless adaptability to her commissioned piece. Rather than meticulously planning every color blend, she allowed herself guided improvisation, fearless painting, where each bold choice countered the fear lurking in her mind. She bravely introduced metallic highlights to symbolize hope-piercing darkness, and soft pastels in the corners to suggest emerging confidence. These fearless strokes transformed the commission into a living testament to triumph over inner barriers. Outside the studio, Camille's fear-conquering practice rippled into other realms. She joined a local storytelling circle, sharing her sketches and the tales behind them. Each narrative chipped away at the stigma of artistic failure, forging connections with people who resonated with her vulnerability. She penned journal entries, not for an audience but for herself, honoring moments when fear threatened to stall her and detailing how she overcame each wave. Weeks later, at the art festival, Camille unveiled her commissioned mural, a grand abstraction that wove charcoal storms and crimson hearts into a tapestry of resilience. Viewers paused, awed by its emotional depth. A mentor approached her, tears in his eyes, sharing how the piece had mirrored his own battles with anxiety. In that exchange, Camille understood the miraculous bond formed when fear is named, shaped, and transformed into art, a bridge between souls forged by shared courage. As doors to new opportunities swung open, gallery invitations, collaborative residencies, interviews, Camille celebrated each not only as a career milestone, but as a victory stitched into her journey of daily fear-facing. She recalled Hill's promise, "The man who fears nothing becomes master of his fate." No longer a passive victim to her doubts, she had become an active shaper of her destiny. In her final fear sketch, Camille painted a single, small white dot at the center of a vast black canvas, a symbol of unwavering presence in the face of darkness. Underneath, she wrote, "I dare greatly." That simple declaration stood as both an invitation and a seal, a testament that true miracles are born when we meet our deepest fears with artistry, action, and unyielding heart. After years of leading large-scale initiatives, Naya felt the weight of ambition pressing on her chest like a stalled engine. As a community organizer in a sprawling metropolis, she had marshaled volunteers for citywide cleanups, spearheaded fundraising galas, and lobbied on behalf of countless neighborhood causes. Yet each victory seemed fleeting, eclipsed by fresh crises. A derelict playground here, a flooded basement there. The grand gestures had yielded progress, but over time, her spirit had begun to erode, worn thin by the enormity of need. One crisp morning, Naya stumbled upon Napoleon Hill's closing chapter in You Can Work Your Own Miracles, where he wrote, "Real miracles are not always grand spectacles. They often emerge from simple routines that harness the mind's creative power day by day." He illustrated how small, consistent rituals can create ripple effects far larger than any one sweeping action. In that moment, Nia realized that while her grand campaigns moved mountains, she needed daily miracle moments to sustain her purpose and ignite change at the grassroots. Driven by Hill's insight, Naya designed her first daily miracle ritual. Each morning, before scanning urgent emails or scheduling volunteer meetings, she would spend 5 minutes on the stoop of her brownstone, sketching a quick map of the day's micro-actions. Acts so modest they seemed inconsequential on their own, yet when combined, held the power to shift her neighborhood's rhythm. She penciled items like greet the morning barista by name, drop off extra produce at the community pantry, and leave an uplifting note on a neighbor's door. The next morning, in the soft glow of dawn, Nia sat on her worn stoop, the city's first light brushing the pavement. She sketched 3 micro-actions on a scrap of notebook paper and tucked it into her coat pocket. As she walked to the cafe, she greeted Sarah, the barista, with a warm, "Good morning, Sarah," rather than her usual hurried nod. Sarah's surprised smile lit up the shop, setting a ripple of kindness into Nia's day that she would feel echo in every subsequent interaction. At the community pantry, Nia arrived to find shelves slightly bare. She unloaded her extra vegetables, bright zucchini, tender carrots, stacking them in neat rows. A volunteer, exhausted from an overnight shift, looked up in gratitude, their shoulders relaxing as the pantry brimmed once more. Nia felt a small miracle bloom, a moment of relief for someone in need, sparked by her deliberate choice to carry that modest basket. Later, she left a handwritten note on the door of Mrs. Alvarez, her elderly neighbor. "Today is your day. May it bring small joys your way." Nia slipped away before being seen, but later discovered the note pinned to Mrs. Alvarez's fridge, a bright spot on a page of bills and reminders. That evening, Mrs. Alvarez knocked on Nia's door to thank her, offering homemade biscotti in return, a gesture that nourished Nia's soul far more deeply than any gala accolade. Emboldened, Nia expanded her daily miracle rituals to involve her team. Each morning at 9, she sent a group text, "Miracle Moment for Today." One day, it read, "Share an illuminating fact about our neighborhood's history with a stranger." Volunteers responded with delight, engaging bus drivers and store owners in conversations that unveiled hidden murals, vanished landmarks, and stories of resilience. With each shared revelation, the community's tapestry felt richer, more connected. Another day, the miracle moment was plant wildflower seeds at the vacant lot on Elm Street. A handful of volunteers showed up that afternoon, scattering seeds in the dry earth. Weeks later, bursts of blue and gold blossoms sprang up, transforming the neglected lot into a riot of color that neighbors stopped to photograph and share online. The power of that simple ritual, sowing seeds both literal and metaphorical, revealed how small acts, repeated, can reshape the landscape of a community. Nia also wove daily miracle rituals into her organizational meetings. Before diving into agenda items, she asked each member to share one small wonder they witnessed in the past 24 hours. Stories poured forth: a child's art pasted on a telephone pole, an impromptu street jam that united musicians, a driver's wave of thanks for volunteering at a school crossing. These reflections fostered a culture of attentive gratitude, reminding everyone why they showed up each day. Over months, the cumulative effect was astonishing. Crime reports in key blocks dipped as neighbors who once were strangers now greeted each other by name. Local businesses reported an uptick in foot traffic, driven by the community's renewed sense of pride in its colorful murals and cared-for gardens. Attendance at town hall meetings tripled as residents felt their voices mattered and believed they could spark miracles through small, intentional deeds. Nia herself shifted. Where once she measured success by the number of grants secured or volunteers recruited, she now found profound satisfaction in unnoticed acts, offering water to a weary delivery driver, posting flyers for a neighbor's fundraiser, or simply pausing to listen to someone's concerns for a moment too often bypassed. These everyday miracles fortified her mission, ensuring that her own optimism never dwindled beneath the weight of large-scale challenges. As spring turned to summer, Nia organized a Neighborhood Miracles Festival, an event celebrating the tapestry of small wonders woven over the previous months. Residents gathered in a sun-dappled park, sharing stories of daily miracle rituals, showcasing photographs of wildflowers in bloom, and gifting jars of Mrs. Alvarez's biscotti. The air hummed with laughter and the warmth of shared purpose, a testament to what can emerge when individuals commit to simple, consistent acts of caring. On the festival stage, Nia held up Hill's battered copy of "You Can Work Your Own Miracles" and spoke of the power in everyday rituals. She reminded the crowd, miracles aren't just rare lightning strikes, they are the quiet dawns born from intentional choices made each day. The audience cheered, not just for her words but for the neighborhood they had co-created, one small miracle at a time. As dusk settled, lanterns flickered to life around the park. Volunteers and neighbors strolled among them, pausing to leave fresh notes of encouragement on each post, a final miracle moment for the day. Nia watched, her heart full, knowing that these rituals would endure beyond any festival. In the simple act of designing daily miracle rituals, she had unlocked a wellspring of hope that would continue to flow, nourishing her community's spirit for years to come. To come. To come. To come. To come. To come.